Hey, what is up everyone, Omogonix here and welcome to part 20 of my tutorial series where I teach you guys how to make a first-person horror game in Godot. So we are approaching the end of this series now, so what I'm planning to do today to get started with is I want to do a checkpoint, sort of like a save system kind of thing. It's only going to be one checkpoint, but basically when we get down here into the basement and we end up finding the safe, I want to basically save a checkpoint so then if the player gets killed by the enemy, then they can just respawn there instead of having to start over the game again. I don't know what else we're going to be doing in this tutorial, but I guess we'll just see how long the checkpoint stuff takes. So if you do enjoy, be sure to like, comment, and subscribe for more, and let's get right into it. So first off, in order to do our checkpoint system here, one thing which I am going to do is I am actually going to add a node into my level scene here. It's going to be a node 3D. And also something else which I want to do soon as well is I want to better sort out all these nodes here because, you know, I don't like having an unsorted hierarchy, and my hierarchy here looks a bit unsorted at the moment, but I'll be fixing that up later on. So I'm just going to be putting this down here now. Also, one thing I will say about the position as well, as you can see I've got mine close to the ground right now, but I think it would be better for me to put my position towards the middle. So with my player, right, the player's origin point is basically like the middle of the player. So if your player's origin point is the middle of the player, if you end up doing your position, your spawn position too close to the ground, then your player could end up falling through the ground because half of their body is going to be, you know, up through the ground, then the other half is going to be down this half of the ground, so yeah. So if your character's origin point is similar to mine where it's in the middle of the body, then you'll want to have your spawn position more up like this, so then your player spawns more properly. I am just going to call this checkpoint position. There we go. And also if you want your player to be rotated a certain way with your checkpoint as well, I do recommend checking this box here so then you can actually check the local rotation, and then you can rotate this as you wish. So then, you know, if you want your player to be rotated towards the door, for example, right, then you'd make sure that your blue arrow is pointing in the opposite direction, so then it's like this. Alright, so what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to create a new scene, a 3D scene. Going to change the type of this to an area 3D. And then we're also going to add a collision shape as well. Alrighty, so with this trigger here, what we're going to do is I'm going to call this checkpoint trigger. Oh, and also with my collision shape, wait, did I set a box shape? Yeah, I did. I just don't have gizmos on, so I couldn't see it. Alright, so now that we've got these two nodes here set up, now let's go create a script for our checkpoint trigger node. Going to create a new script, go into my scripts folder, general scripts I call it, checkpoint trigger, and create. There we go. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to get rid of this starter stuff for now, and we're going to go call func enter trigger. So this is going to be our enter trigger function for when the player enters the trigger, and make sure that when you do have your enter trigger function as well, you do have like a body variable within the parentheses of the function. Because what this is going to be is this is going to be the body that enters the trigger. So what happens is when our player enters the trigger, it grabs the whatever body entered it, and then that's what this is. So if body.name equals to player, or whatever your player's name is, then what will happen is the following. So first off, what we're going to do is we are going to create a new variable. So we're going to go var, and I'm going to call this save equals file access dot open. And here is where we are going to save a file for our checkpoint. So I'm just going to call this user ... and it's important that you do that because that's the directory of where we're going to be saving the file. So where we're actually saving the file, if you go to project and then open user data folder, you'll see that you'll have all of your save files in here. So as you can see, for this project we have all of our settings save files in here. If you watched the video where I did the settings menu, you would know about all this. So that's where we're going to be saving this checkpoint save file. So we're doing user ... and then I'm going to call this checkpoint.skibbity. And you can do whatever you want for the file extension, by the way. You can literally do, you know, .dat, .skibbity, literally anything. You know, it doesn't matter what you do for the file extension, it can literally be anything. And also you can call it whatever you want to as well. It doesn't have to just be called checkpoint, it can be called whatever you want it to be. So then we do a comma and then file access dot write. So what we're doing here is we're writing a save file. So then we do afterwards save.store string. So we're going to be storing a string into the save file. And I'm just going to call this just done. You know, it's not really too important what we have in here, just as long as we've got, you know, just something. Or even as long as the save file itself exists. And then we just do save.close, just like that. And also I'm going to do a variable here to make sure that the player can't trigger this again. So we just do var triggered equals false. And then so in the trigger function, if body.name equals the player end, not triggered, so the exclamation mark means not. And then yeah, save.close right down there. And there we go. So now I'm just going to save this scene. Yeah, I guess I'll just save it into my scenery folder, even though it's a trigger. But alright, so that there is how we basically create the save file for our checkpoint. Alright, so now after you write out this function here, what we're going to do is we are going to, so make sure that you have your checkpoint trigger node selected. Then over here to the right, switch over to the node tab. And then go to body entered, double click on it. And then we're going to be connecting up our enter trigger function, so whatever your function's name is that you use to enter the trigger to check if the player's entered the trigger, then you just enter in that function name, and boom, as you can see it is now connected, and you'll know it's connected because of the green icon that's now next to the function name. Alrighty, so now that we've set up our checkpoint trigger here, there is a bit more coding to do, but we'll get to that in a bit, because what I want to do now is I want to go do some setting up for the main menu. So with our main menu here, right, as you can see we have a new game and continue game button, but our continue game button is disabled because we only want to enable it when there's actually a save file. So what we're going to do is we're going to go into our script, and with the new game function, first of all, when we start a new game, there's one thing that I do want to do. So we go direct access dot remove absolute, and then we do the path for our save file that created before. So for me it's user.//checkpoint.skibbity. And basically what we do whenever we start a new game is we remove the save file so then it doesn't get detected when we do play a new game. But on the other hand, if we create a new ready function here, so we go func ready, and then we actually check for the save file, so we can go var save, and then again file access dot open user.//checkpoint.skibbity. But this time, instead of doing file access.write, we do file access.read because we are reading the file, and then we do if save. So if save means if the save file exists, so if this file actually does exist, then what we can do is we can actually set the continue button, which is button 2 in my hierarchy, so I'm just going to go grab that. So main/button 2, that's my continue button. Then I'm going to go .disabled equals false. So then the continue button is no longer disabled. So now we will create a function for the continue game. So I'm actually going to go create a function called continue game. And basically what I'm going to do is I'm going to grab interact.play, because whenever we press a button we want the interact sound to play. Then I'm going to grab the await timer, so then it gives a bit of time for the sound to play. And then we're going to load up a scene, except it's not going to be the story scene like with what we have here. It is instead just going to be the regular old level scene. So I'm just going to go scenery, and then where's level? Oh wait a second, it's actually in the levels folder. Levels.level.tscn, just get rid of that at the end there, and there we go. Alrighty, so whenever we press the continue game button, it will just load us directly into the game. So now we do need to connect up the function, of course, to the continue game button, so make sure you have your continue game button selected. Go back to the node tab, double click on the pressed signal there, and then you want to enter in your continue game function, connect, and there we go. So now we can actually continue the game. Alrighty, so now that we've got our main menu stuff all set up with the continue button, let's now get back to the checkpoint trigger, since there's going to be a bit more we got to do with this now. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a ready function. So we're going to go func_ready, So one thing which we need to make sure we do first off, of course, is we need to make sure that the key that is used to open up the basement door is no longer spawned in. We also need to make sure that the basement door itself is unlocked. And we also need to make sure that the player's position is where it's meant to be. So yeah, there's some things that we definitely need to keep check of. Oh, and also we need to make sure that we set the right task as well. So one thing which I'm going to do is I'm actually going to, before we get to the coding here, I'm actually going to plop this trigger into our level scene here, and the reason as to why is because I do want to be in the level scene anyway, just so I can get an idea of, you know, where our nodes are and stuff like that we're going to be needing to get access of when we are doing some coding for the checkpoint trigger. So I'm just going to go instantiate child scene, checkpoint trigger. Just going to turn on Gizmo so then I can actually see it. There it is. So with this checkpoint trigger, it's going to be, I think, probably right here. Or maybe just right out the front of the door, perhaps. Something like that. So just in a very similar spot to where we have this this other trigger here. Alright, so we have our checkpoint trigger all set up now. Actually, I just realized something. The way I scaled the checkpoint trigger isn't really the best. So one thing which is definitely not recommended in Godot is that when you're scaling triggers, right, it's not recommended that you scale them from the transform, since as you can see here we actually have this yellow caution symbol. Now this doesn't really cause much issues, you know, like I've done this with tons of my games before, like even Mushi's Kitchen Reheated, where, you know, I'll scale the triggers out like you know, by their transform, and, you know, I never notice any issues. But just in case you do want to make sure that you do minimize those yellow symbols you see, you can just scale it back to 1, and then you can go edible children, and then with your collision shape, then you just, well, we can't scale it from here because this is you know, it's part of another scene, but we can just go make unique in order to scale it, and there we go. So now it's no longer grayed out. And then what you can do is you can then scale your collision box from the resource itself. Since it's not even recommended to scale a collision shape from the actual transform scale, you could do it from the actual resource. So hopefully you guys do understand what I mean by that. Now let's actually get back to the scripting for the checkpoint trigger finally. So with our ready function here, what we're going to start off by doing is we're going to go get underscore tree dot current underscore scene dot get underscore node player. And then what we're going to do is we're then going to do dot global underscore transform dot origin equals, and then we need to actually grab our checkpoint position. So I'm going to go get underscore tree dot current underscore scene dot get underscore node checkpoint position. And you guys can call this whatever you want to as well. It doesn't have to be called checkpoint position. It can be called, you know, literally whatever you want it to be called. And then we do .global underscore transform .origin here as well. Now, if you think that is a bit too long of a line of code to have, one other alternative of what you can do is you can actually set variables like @onReadyVar, and then we can just grab the player like this. So we can go @onReadyVar player, so then we're setting the player variable @onReadyPlayer, so then we can just, instead of having, you know, this long line in the ready function, just have player here, and we can do the same thing with the checkpoint position. Oh wait, we need to do @onReadyVar checkpoint position. And then we can just grab this line of code, paste that there, so then when the scene starts, we're then assigning the checkpoint position to this. And then we can just do checkpoint pos .global underscore transform .origin. There we go. So yeah, that definitely does look a lot more nicer in code. That is one good use of variable, is just making your code look a lot nicer. I didn't want to have that long line there, so yeah. So yeah, what we're doing first off is we're setting the player's global transform .origin, which means the player's position, to be the checkpoint position. Another thing which we're going to do, so as you can see, we have the key here, right? And this key, this is meant for opening up the trapdoor, but what we're going to do is we are going to simply just delete it. So we can just do get underscore tree dot current underscore scene dot get underscore node key. You could set a variable for this if you want to as well, but I'm not really going to be, since it's not going to be that long of a line anyway. And then we just do q underscore free, so then I delete the key from the scene. Another thing, as I mentioned before too, that we should do is we should make sure that the house trapdoor is actually set to be open. So right now by default this should actually be locked. The reason as to why I don't have it set as locked right now is because of a certain bug to do with the key, with how its position can go in the basement as well. I just need to fix that up, then we're all good. But also what we're going to be doing with the checkpoint too is we're actually going to be grabbing the trapdoor hinge. So for me the path is going to be a little bit long, so I think I am going to create a variable for this. We're going to go @onReadyVar trapdoor equals, then we'll just grab this bit of code here, paste it underneath, and then we go house / trapdoor / trapdoor hinge. There we go. So then what we can do here is trapdoor dot locked equals false, so then the player can actually open and close it. And another thing which we should do as well is actually set the player task to be what it should be at this point. So when we do enter the house, what's the trigger that gets set here? Find your money. So yeah, we can just set that to be the task name. So what I'm doing right now is I'm in my task trigger script, and I'm just going to go grab the onReadyVar UI code here that I have, paste it over here, and then we can just do UI.setTask, and then we'll replace task text with find your money. So we can just go with a string here, find your money, get rid of task test, and there we go. Oh, and also as well, another thing which I just remembered, if you want to make sure that your player's rotation equals to your checkpoint position's rotation, you can just do player.global_rotation equals checkpoint pos .global_rotation, and there we go. So yeah, that there is how you pretty much do, like, you know, just a very basic checkpoint script if you just want to do, like, you know, a singular checkpoint for your game or something like that, right? So depending on how your game's made, you don't have to do the exact things that I'm doing here, like with, you know, removing a key and setting a task and unlocking a trapdoor. You can do whatever is meant to happen in your game, like if there's a certain character that's in your game, right, but then you want that character to be removed when your player reaches a certain checkpoint, then hey, you could add that into the code instead of removing a key, you know? Basically, you know, I'm just showing you guys how to do certain things. You don't have to do exactly what I'm doing. You don't have to make the exact same game that I'm making. It's just giving you guys pointers for as you're making your own game. But yeah. Alright, so now that we have that set up, one last thing which I want to do for this checkpoint stuff is I actually want to go create a new bit of text. So on my main canvas layer here, I'm actually just going to disable this, I'm just going to disable everything here so then we can actually see what's going on. There we go. So I'm going to add a new child node to my canvas layer. It's going to be a text, just a rich text label. And I'm just going to enter in saving, or saved checkpoint, just like that. So then the player knows that a checkpoint has been saved. And I am going to make the text a bit bigger, which also reminds me as well, I do need to get some, you know, some different fonts in. Alright, so I'm just going to call this save text. There we go. And then we can just turn it off for now. Alright, so now we're back in the checkpoint trigger script. So now what we're going to do here is in our enter trigger function, after the save stuff happens, what we're going to do is we're going to do UI dot get underscore node, because we've basically got the player's UI here, and then under the player UI we're going to have to get the canvas layer node / save text. So we're getting the save text from our UI variable, and then we do dot visible equals true, and then what we can do to turn off the text afterwards is we can go await get underscore tree dot create underscore timer, and then we could set this to something like 2 or 3 seconds, whatever you want it to be. I might just set it to 2 seconds as an example. In fact, I'll make it true on the timer. So basically what true means, for those of you who need a reminder, basically true means that the timer can happen whilst the game is paused, whereas if false is what you use for the timer, then that means that the timer can only happen whilst the game isn't paused. So yeah. So then we just grab this line of code here again, and then dot visible equals false, just like that. Alright, so before we do test this trigger out, one last thing which I just remembered I forgot to do is make sure that triggered equals to true after entering the trigger. And there we go. So now that that is all hopefully set up, hopefully there is nothing smaller that I'm forgetting right now. Actually, wait, no, there is the doorbell stuff at the start. I just remembered now. And also, we'll probably need to disable the other triggers as well. Now I'm just remembering there's a few other things we got to do before we actually do fully test this out. Alright, so one other thing which I'm going to need to do, I just remembered, is I'm going to need to disable the other task triggers. Well, not the task trigger that is in here, this one can stay, because that comes, after our checkpoint, but anything that becomes before our checkpoint, such as this task trigger, should be, gone. So what I'm going to do is I'm also going to actually go in my ready function get underscore tree dot current underscore scene dot get underscore node task trigger. So this is just called task trigger, yep. Then q underscore free, so then we actually just delete it from our scene completely. Oh, and also we have the thing to do with the doorbell as well. So what I'm planning to do with the doorbell is we can make times rung equal to 2, so then the player cannot interact with the doorbell after the checkpoint, and also we'll need to make sure that door locked equals to false. So what I'm actually going to do here in my doorbell script, I'm actually going to do this in the doorbell script, this next part here. So we're going to go var save. Actually, let's just go grab it from the I'm just going to go grab it from the main menu which we did earlier. Oh, and also one other thing which I've got as well in the main menu is after we actually do check if we do have the save file, we need to actually delete it afterwards. So we need to do save.close. Well, not delete it, but I mean we need to close it afterwards. That's what I mean. Because otherwise, if you leave it open, then that may cause issues or whatever. But yeah. So do make sure you do save.close after you check if it's open. If it isn't open, and it doesn't exist, then you don't need to worry about doing save.close. But yeah, you just want to do it inside of if save. So then, you do close it afterwards after you do check it. So now back in the doorbell script here, we're just going to paste this. Then we'll do if save, or if not save at first actually. So we're checking if the save file doesn't exist. Then door.locked will equal to true. Else if save door.locked equals to false. And then we do save.close if the save file exists as well. Oh, and also we do times run equals to 2, just to make sure that the player can't interact with the doorbell anymore. And also speaking of that as well, we do need to actually put this line of code here too into our checkpoint trigger. So then we do if save, so we're checking if the checkpoint file exists. Then we do save.close afterwards, after checking it, and then boom. Alrighty, so now that should hopefully be done, hopefully. Before we do continue on, I just do want to enable that fade. I hate whenever I forget to turn that on. There we go. Alrighty, so now let's go check out this checkpoint trigger. So yeah, this game so far is pretty neat for a little small horror game. Now we can enter the house. Alright, cool, now we got saved checkpoint. So now what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to go back to the main menu. Oh, wait a second, I don't have a main menu button yet. Alright, so I just exited out of the game, now I'm going to be restarting it, so then we can actually check our main menu to see if we can continue the game, and if our save file worked. And yep, it did. As you can see, our continue button is no longer disabled. We can now click on it, so now let's click on it and see what happens. And here we are. We are now down here again, as you can see. So yeah, the checkpoint trigger worked just as intended. So now if I want to go outside here, as you can see, we don't have to ring any doorbells or anything anymore. Everything's all good. So yeah, everything just pretty much just gets set the way it should be when we walk in this trigger. So yeah. So whenever the player dies now, what will happen is they'll just be right here before the enemy even spawns in the first place. Alrighty, so one thing which I want to do is in my main menu function, in my main menu script, in the ready function, I want to do input dot set mouse mode, and then set it to be visible. And the reason as to why is because when our player dies, my mouse didn't become visible, so therefore I couldn't use the main menu. So yeah, do make sure that you do that. Also, another thing which we're going to be doing in this tutorial as well is we are actually going to be making sure that our text, so our UI text and stuff, has actually got a font set. So as you can see right now, the font is pretty basic, but I will show you guys where you can find some cool fonts to use for your text in your games. Alright, so where we're going to be getting some fonts today is Google Fonts, or fonts.google.com. Now, as you just saw before, I had the FAQ page open, and that's because I just want to give you guys some info, so you're probably thinking to yourself, are these free to use? Can I use these in commercial projects, like if I'm doing a paid project, for example? And the answer is yes, you can. Google literally says you can right here. So you can use fonts in logos, all that sort of stuff. Pretty much they're open source, and you can use them however you like. So that is a good thing about Google Fonts. It's probably the best site to find fonts to use. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to probably find 1 or 2 different types of fonts to use for this game I'm making for the tutorial. And I recommend you guys do the same. So I think this Winky Rough one here looks cool, so I think we'll get this font. And also I have another font already here, Libertinus Math, or however you pronounce that word. So I think I'm going to be using both of these fonts for my tutorial game. I think I already have this one here installed, in fact, like already downloaded, so I don't even think I'll need to re-download this one, but I will download this one, so yeah. Alrighty, so once you download your fonts or font, however many you did download, you can just go click on it and extract it from the folder, just like that. And then here is where you'll find the fonts. So if we go into the static folder here is all the different types of this particular Winky Rough font that exist. So we have the italic, the light, the medium, the regular, semi-bold, semi-bold italic. So yeah, depending on how you want to use this font, there's already all these different options here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go into my project, and then I'm going to create a new folder. We're going to call this fonts. So I'm just going to call this fonts. There we go. And I'm going to drag all of these fonts here of the Winky font into here. And there we go. So now they're all in my fonts folder. So if I was to go to my main menu as an example, right, and then go into my new game button, if we go down to the font section and we go to select a font, as you can see, all these fonts now show up. So let's actually select one of them. So I'll select the Winky Rough Bold, and as you can see, the font has been set. So now the text looks different on our new game button compared to the other buttons here. Let's actually see how the other options look, because we do have some other options here too. Let's see how the light looks. So yeah, the light looks pretty good. In fact, I think we will use the light for the buttons. So I'm going to select all the buttons here, go to the theme overrides, fonts, then I'm going to set the font to the Winky Rough light, and there we go. That looks nice. And this version 1.0 text over here, we can set the font for this too. I think I'll probably make this light italic, and there we go. So italic basically just means that the text is sort of slanted to the side a bit. Alrighty, so now that we've got the font set for the main menu stuff, there is some more main menu stuff which we need to set, but we've got the main menu stuff set. So now let's go into the Are You Sure screen. So with this, with the buttons here, I'm actually going to set them to the light font, like with what I did before with the other buttons. Just going to search up light, and I think this is the one. Yep, that looks like the one. And then with this one here, we might go with a different one. How does the black look? Okay, so yeah, the black is like very thick text, so if you want something like that, then yeah. But I'm gonna go with something else. Maybe medium? Yeah, I'll probably go with medium with this. Alright, so that's the Are You Sure screen. Now let's actually move over to the settings. So since that's a completely different scene, I will be opening up the settings scene. There we go. So with all these rich text labels here that we have, I'm actually going to set these all to a particular font, so maybe the medium one, like with what we set with the Are You Sure thing. Set that to medium, there we go. Alrighty, so now with these buttons here, we're going to be setting these to the light font. So if these option buttons, theme overrides, fonts, and then I'm going to set them to the light font, and there we go. Boom. Just like that. Alright, so what's next up for the main menu stuff? Oh yes, the controls. So now we open up the controls scene. And now let's set the controls. And there we go. Also, something else which I'm actually going to add into the controls here is mouse to look around. Since, you know, need to tell the player how to look around. Alright, so then we have the credits. So I'm going to open up this. And there we go, once again. Alright, so now we're going to go to the story, since we got to set the text here as well. Let me just fade in the animation just to see what the text, you know, looks like as I do change it. So I'm going to change the font. I think we'll go with the light one here. Yep, just like that, and that looks good. And then we have the warning, and then I think we'll set the warning text to something like black. Yeah, we'll use black for that. That looks good. Then for the white, we'll just use like light or medium. Yeah, I'd say that looks pretty good. Yeah, we'll go with this. And then the ending, of course. And there we go. I think lastly is the pause menu. I don't know if we've got any more UI stuff. Oh, and I think the tasks. I just remembered the tasks. I think we got to set as well. And there we go. Alright, so then we have the task stuff. So we got to set the task text here. Just like that. Alright, so then we have the safe UI. I think this is the last thing we need to set for the fonts. So with these buttons here, once again, they're going to be light font. So just going to set this to light. And then with this, I might set this to medium. And then this text here, in the actual password field, we'll set this to, set this to light again. And there we go. Alright, so before we do actually test out the game fully, one other thing that I want to show you guys is how to remove that grey flash that happens sometimes when we're going between scenes. Alright, so if we go into our project settings here, and then you scroll down to where it says rendering and then environment, you'll actually be able to see the default clear color. So what looks similar about this default clear color? Well, it's the exact same grey that shows up whenever we're transitioning between scenes. So if you want to get rid of that grey flash, you can just set this color to black, and boom, that's that. So now, whenever we're transitioning between scenes, it will just be a black flash instead of a grey flash. Alright, so let's actually go play and test things out now. And we'll see what else there is to do. Alright, so here we are. As you guys saw before, there was no grey flash. So if we go new game, start, as you can see, no grey flash there. And yep, again, no grey flash. And then the game loads me back into the save checkpoint here, even though it realistically shouldn't have. It was meant to delete it. Alright, so I think with the main menu script I made a bit of a mistake. So see where we have the remove absolute line here in the new game function. This should be in the confirm yes, because this is where we actually, you know, start the game. This is where we actually click yes to confirm that we want to start a new game. So we should put the remove absolute for the checkpoint at this function here in the confirm yes function. So yeah. And also another thing which I noticed as well is how we are missing an I in Skibbity. So that's something else which we're missing as well, because, you know, if this actually did work, if this line did work, whenever we pressed a new game button, then technically it should have deleted the save file, but it wasn't. So yeah, the main issue there was that we forgot to put an I after Skibbity. I mean, after the K in Skibbity, so yeah. Anyway, so what I want to do now is I want to test out some of the games, see what else there might be for us to do in future parts, because there's already a few bugs that I'm aware of which I'm going to be fixing up in a future part. But I want to see if there's anything else for us to do in this part or in a future part, so I'm going to go test out the game now, and we'll see. Also, the save checkpoint text, that should not be visible right now, that should be invisible, so I am going to have to fix that up. And also I just realized as well we need to set a font for the save checkpoint text too. And so now the save text is finally disabled because of the checkpoint trigger text. I mean the checkpoint trigger in general. And then now we're getting chased by the AI. Oh, and he got me. Oh no, he got me. You died. Oh yeah, we need to set the font for the "you died" text too. So yeah, now after we die, when we press continue, it just goes back to the checkpoint. Alrighty, well let's try to figure out this code then. Oh, he's standing right there. Oh no, he's chasing me now. Oh no. And I got killed. Damn it. Oh well. But yeah, so the game's working quite fine at the moment. Of course, there is some things left to do, but overall it's working quite well at the moment. See, as I saw before, we should set the font for the deaf screen. I'm going to do that quickly. But yeah, so overall guys, this is pretty much the end of the tutorial now. All I'm going to be doing is just, you know, setting the font for a few things which I've got to set the font for. I think that looks good as the black font. So if you guys hear my dog barking in the background. And then lastly, we'll then set the save text here, which we're going to actually, you know, make sure it's not visible at first. And I'm going to set this to the light font. But yeah, so anyways guys, that's going to be the end of this tutorial. If you did enjoy, be sure to like, comment, and subscribe for more. So in this tutorial, to recap, what we did was we basically, you know, made a checkpoint trigger. And then we also added in some fonts, tested out the game a bit. Set the, you know, the default clear color, so then we no longer have that grey flash again. There is still some stuff more to do, but overall we're getting closer and closer and closer. Anyways, I'll see you all soon, and bye-bye.